Well, good morning, good morning, good morning. How is everyone today? It has been so hot. I feel like I've just been melting away this week. Anyways, hope you're doing well. My name is Reverend Nori Ross. I'm the minister here, and so pleased to welcome each of you to our ongoing Zoom Sunday service. I'm thinking I'm going to change one song to "You've Got to Zoom When the Spirit Says Zoom." That's my new theme song, I think. Anyways, if this is your first time visiting, and if you feel comfortable doing so, please just say hey in the chat and let us know it's your first time, and we'll be sure to send you a shout out. A few announcements as always. Joys and Concerns are still Tuesdays with Nori every Tuesday at 5:30. Wait, I need some more coffee. Okay, Tuesdays with Nori, an informal place to share our joys and concerns, what's happening in our life, how we're coping with COVID. The link to that is on the homepage of our website. And if you have any personal joys and concerns you would like to share with the broader community, we'll put those in our weekly e-letter. You can email those to eletter@asuuc.net. That's just one word, eletter@asuuc.net. Our E continues to meet before service, and that link is also on our website, Religious Exploration for Children. Speaking of religious exploration, the team is happy to announce that they're hiring a youth coordinator this summer. All Souls and High Plains, our youth groups, are once again joining forces to create a combined and unified Colorado Springs YRUU, which stands for Young Religious Unitarian Universalists. And the leadership role is from September to May. Summer's off, just 4 hours a week. Bada bing, bada boom. If you're interested, you can see the job description on the website or the newsletter, or you can contact our Director of Religious Exploration, Beth Queen, directly. And we'll be taking applications until July 22nd. I had a great conversation with Jory McKay, the minister at High Plains, this past week. We met in the garden at All Souls and had lunch, socially distanced. And we're wanting to do some things together, particularly around Black Lives Matter. So I shared with her what we've been doing in terms of having that, inviting people to watch that anti-racist training online and having a discussion group about it. And she shared with me what they've been doing, which is watching a 2-part series on PBS called Reconstruction, America After the Civil War. So we decided that I'm going to extend this offer to you. Let us watch that. AB's going to put the link to that in the chat. It explores the history of the Reconstruction era to give us a deeper understanding of the origin of today's systemic racism in policing and mass incarceration, as well as the Black-led movements resisting it. So we're going to do that. It's narrated by Henry Louis Gates Jr. So we're going to do that. I'll be setting up another Zoom meetings for our church to talk about that in the next few weeks. That organization is offering the anti-racism training again in August. So she's going to extend that invitation to their people. And I would extend it to you again. I'll resend out the links and do another link for that to have a conversation around that. And then in the fall, we're going to meet together and decide what two congregations can do together to be one strong, united voice of Unitarian Universalism in Colorado Springs around Black Lives Matter and racial justice and equity. Thursday Garden Chat, 10 a.m. I know the second one I had to miss. I put that in the e-letter. I'm sorry if you were there. I think maybe one person went. But it's back again, 10 a.m. in the front garden. It's lovely. The first time was a lot of shade and just a great conversation. So if you'd like to join us for that socially distanced face-to-face gathering, that would be awesome. And then finally, next Sunday, the 19th at 1 p.m., we're going to be holding the memorial service for Jan Otto's son, Wesley. It's a separate Zoom link, and that will be in this week's e-letter. And so we encourage you to come back at 1 p.m. to celebrate the life of Wesley Otto then. And then following this service, again, we'll be randomly assigned into coffee breakout rooms with a special one for choir and band. And you'll just be randomly assigned. If you want to stay, you can. If you don't want to, you can leave. It's just that simple. So let's take a few minutes to scroll through the thumbnails and see who's here and just kind of wave at everybody. Good to see you, Tobias. Alice, it's good to see you. Hey, Richard. Polly was at my first garden chat. Bonnie and Eric, Brad, good to see you. Barb, Bill and Kathy as always. Welcome, welcome, Gary, Mr. Harrison. I'm so glad to see all of you here. You know, these are challenging times. Good to see each of you here, though, to be a part of All Souls, to recognize that we are not just having social distancing, but we're having a spiritual connection, and that remains the same whether we're in person or not. And I feel that every Sunday when we gather together, and I'm so gratified that you're here. We come every week not because we must, but because we can. We come not in spite of our differences, but to flaunt our diversity. We gather from every socioeconomic stream, race, ethnicity, gender identity, age, ability, slipper preference. And we find that we're eminently more fabulous and definitely stronger when we can bring all of who we are into this space and be seen and be held in love. And that is what makes this sacred space. And that is what makes this holy ground. So let's take in a minute and breathe in the divinity of this hour brought here to you by you as I ring the bell.
Morning. Today's Chalice lighting is from the poet Gwendolyn Brooks. Say to them, say to the downkeepers, the sun slappers, the self-soilers, the harmony hushers. Even if you are not ready for day, it cannot always be night. You will be right, for that is the hard home run. Live not for battles won. Live not for the end of the song. Live in the along.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Beth Green, Director of Religious Exploration here at All Souls. This morning we had our first summer storytime session. Jessie Trovic was our leader reader and shared an amazing story related to our seventh principle. So thank you, Jessie, for coming in. And next week we have Carla. So if you have kids, grandkids that want to come in the summer before church, 9:45 to 10:15, the Zoom link is on our website. It's just a 30-minute story and activity all summer long. Now for the story for all ages, I have What the Pumpkins Learned, an ancient Buddhist tale retold by Sybil Taylor, illustrated by June Atkin. There was once a very wise old man who lived in the country in a little house with a garden where he grew good things to eat. The very old man loved all the living things around him, and especially he liked to watch his pumpkin patch grow. But one day, the pumpkins began to quarrel. I'm the biggest one. So what? You're crowding me. I'm the sweetest. I'm the highest in the sky. I'm the roundest. You're mean. I don't care. You're just a baby. I'm the closest to the earth. When the old man heard all the racket, he looked out of his window and said, "Please, pumpkins, stop. Shh, no more talking. Just sit very, very quietly together and very, very still and very, very silent like this." "Why?" asked the littlest pumpkin. But the wise old man just smiled and said, "Try it and see." The sun went down over the garden, And in the pumpkin patch, the pumpkin sat very, very still and very, very silent. Stars and moon came out, and the old man slept, and the pumpkins continued to sit very, very still and very, very silent. The rain fell and clouds flew by, and still the pumpkins sat on until, at last, the morning sun rose up. "Pumpkins," the old man said, "did you learn something?" "Yes," they all said happily. "We learned that we all feel the same things. We all feel the warm sun on our skins, helping us to be strong and to grow. We all feel the raindrops bringing fresh water to the earth and to the thirsty roots of our vine mother. We all feel our vine mother drinking up the water and feeding it to each and every one of us through our stems. And we know that, and all and one, we are connected together in a single, great, big, beautiful pumpkin patch." And the wise old man smiled and said, "Good." And then he went into his house and ate a delicious breakfast. The end.
Good morning, everybody. Our reading today is by Barbara Kingsolver from her amazing book, High Tide in Tucson. In my own worst seasons, I've come back from the colorless world of despair by forcing myself to look hard for a long time at a single glorious thing. A flame of red geranium outside my bedroom window, and then another, my daughter in a yellow dress, and another, the perfect outline of a full dark sphere behind the crescent moon, until I learned to be in love with my life again. Like a stroke victim, retraining new parts of the brain to grasp lost skills, I have taught myself joy over and over again.
Great reading. I can't believe that there's a Barbara Kingsolver book that I have not read, but that is one of them. So thank you, Kathy, for making me aware of it. Today, I'm going to start with a story about a Zen king whose people had grown soft and entitled. They were just whiny. So the king decided to teach them a lesson. He had a large boulder placed in the middle of the main road, and then he hid nearby to see what folks would do as they came along the road. How would they respond? Would they seek help from others? Would they group together and try to push the boulder out of the way? Or would they get discouraged and just quit and go home? With growing disappointment, he watched as one after another came to the boulder and turned away. Oh, some would, half-heartedly try to push against it, but most just complained and cursed the road department or whined about how their whole day was ruined now. After several days, however, a lone peasant came along on his way to town, and he did not turn away. At first, he tried with all his strength to push the boulder out of the way. But when that didn't work, he thought and thought, and then he had an idea. And he went into the forest right off the road, and he found a large branch he could use as a lever to put under the rock, and used it to dislodge it from the road. Beneath the rock was a purse of gold and a note from the king, which said, "The obstacle in the path becomes the path. Never forget, every obstacle is an opportunity to improve our condition." I found that story in the book we're going to begin discussing today in a 3-part sermon series, The Obstacle is the Way, The Timeless Art of Turning Trials into Triumph by Ryan Holiday. It had come up as a suggestion on my Kindle, and it did seem like a timely subject. There have been many obstacles seemingly dropped down from the sky, landing on the path we were just ambling along. COVID-19, obviously, and the isolation that comes from that, the economy, the runaway train wreck of leadership that we have, racism, racist acts. Those are huge boulders, and they're all pretty much external to most of us. But we also have the internal boulders too, the internal obstacles such as fear or disorientation or uncertainty or financial concerns or relationship issues from being stuck together for too long or relationship issues from being apart for too long. Ryan Holiday in this book talks about people who faced seemingly insurmountable obstacles but overcame them to be some of the most successful people in the world. And he grounds his theory of why that happens in three things: perception, action, and will. And today I want to talk about the first one. I want to talk about perception, perspective, and power. Perception is how we see and understand what occurs around us, what we see when we look out of our very own eyes. Now I'm going to try to do a screen share. Screen share. Some of you have seen this before. I've seen it before, but it seems to have disappeared now. Stand by. Here we go. I clearly have too many windows open. Here we go. Some of you have seen that before, but even when you look at it now, what do you see? Do you see, and you can write this in the chat if you want what you see first. Do you see an old woman with a big nose kind of bent over? Or do you see a really elegant young woman dressed elegantly with like a stole around her shoulders and her head is slightly turned away? What do you see? And once you see the other one, can you go back and forth? Can you go back from the old lady to the young woman? Okay, what about this one? Hold on, let me get back to Zoom. I'm not very good at multitasking. I should have asked Rick if he could do this, but I didn't. Okay. Go away. Stop share. Now let me go to the second one. But wait, there's more. How many people do you see in this photo? I only saw two, but I knew, of course, that that was the wrong answer, because when they ask you, how many people do you see in this photo, you know it's more than what you think you can see. Can anybody else see any other people in this video, in this photo rather? Can you see the baby in the photo? There's a baby in the photo. Can you see it? I'll show it to you. There it is. Can you see it now? Actually, once you see it, you can't unsee it, right? There's more to the picture than we sometimes see. And what we know is that we can heighten our perception to see more than we originally thought. Kathy read in Barbara Kingsolver's reading today that she had to specifically concentrate on enlarging her frame of her perception in her darkest times. In her darkest time, when it was easy just to see how horrible things were, how miserable things were, she had to intentionally look for joy that's waiting right there. It's always was there. She just couldn't see it until she changed her focus. And many of us have been actively working on heightening our own perception about white privilege, systemic racism, and our role in it. And we're changing our perception. We've gone, many of us, from, well, I grew up poor, so I don't have white privilege, or I'm not racist, or I don't see anybody's color. We've changed it. We've intentionally focused, like Barbara Kingsolver, on seeing more than what we were raised to see. Perception, as I said, is how we see and understand what's around us. Now, perspective is that particular attitude toward or way of regarding what we see. It's a point of view. What we decide those events will mean. In the book, Holiday writes, "There is no good or bad without us. There is only the event and the story we tell ourselves about what it means." The Landmark Forum teaches us that humans are meaning-making machines. We tell stories about everything. We can't help it. It's like we're saying, help, I'm making stories and I can't shut up, because that's just what we do. Someone we know walks by us in the mall and doesn't wave at us, well, they're mad at us, obviously. We text somebody, they don't answer. Clearly, I've done something wrong. What did I do wrong? Why are they mad at me? Same thing. That's why eyewitness accounts of an accident or a crime can be so wildly diverse, is because everybody's there. We can't just describe the event. We have to make meaning out of what we personally saw, and it's typically different. I do this contest 2 or 3 times a year, I think. It's called the Flash Fiction Challenge. And it varies. Sometimes you have to write a story in 24 hours, no more than 500 words. Sometimes it's 250 words. I just finished one this weekend. It's 1,000 words. But what you do once you register is that they put you in a group with 24 other people, and they give you a genre and a location and an object. And for this one, you had to write a 1,000-word story on it. So this weekend was a crime caper, a shrine, and a cash register. So I wrote a 1,000-word story about that, and 24 people in my group wrote with the exact same genre, location, and object, will have written completely different stories, because they're making meaning out of those objects just like I did. And our perspective depends on where we stand in life. We can see that in everything from reaction to George Floyd's murder to wearing masks. And I have to stop here and say something the book doesn't really address, is that for most of us who have lighter toned skin, and some of us with perhaps a higher socioeconomic status, there's a boulder in the road. But for people of color, and especially our Black kin, the boulder has been landing for centuries, not in the road, but on their neck, and they can't breathe. So we see reactions to George Floyd's murder and the protests around them, to wearing masks. But guess what? We have the power over our perspectives to change them, to change the story. Marcus Aurelius wrote in like 170, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." The impediment to action actually advances the action. What stands in the way becomes the way. So one person sees crisis, another sees opportunity. We get to choose. Nelson Mandela turned a decades-long prison sentence into a workshop on how to lead a free nation. Viktor Frankl asserted before he was taken to a Nazi concentration camp that everything can be taken from a person but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. He was a psychiatrist who was arrested and taken to a Nazi death camp, and he got to try that on. And then he wrote about it in Man's Search for Truth and Meaning. I know I've shared this before, but I love this image of him standing there in this horrible prison, not knowing if he was going to live or die. And he would preach a speech about how you get to choose your own way. You get to choose how you will respond to life, to whatever boulders are in your road. You get to choose. And he would just speak this to hundreds and hundreds of imaginary people while the guards looked on. And he survived and wrote about all that in Man's Search for Meaning. Perspective is we decide what story we're going to tell ourselves. And everything is perspective. he talked about, I can't remember who it was, but in the book he talked about how, if we just describe things literally as they are, we could say that's a piece of dead cow and a glass of fermented grapes, or it's a lovely steak dinner with a nice Chianti. We get to choose our perspectives. And I might even say we have the responsibility to examine them, to not just blindly continue to assert them, that this is our truth and that's it. Because the reality of it is that everything we see is a story and not the true. So to not just blindly continue to assert them, but to actually maybe even take on somebody else's point of view. Because we can be 100% sure we're right? It just all depends on where we stand, what we see. And we can get into a big argument, whether it's a 6 or a 9, or we can choose to walk around and see it from the other person's perspective. It's up to us. And it's hard work, because it might involve getting up from our seat of righteous indignation to see things from another's perspective. And the ego wants us to stick to our guns. We know the story we've made up, and by golly, we took great pleasure in our authorship of it, and we're not going to change it. We know the story we've made up about COVID, about the protests, about why our marriage failed or we didn't get the promotion. We know those stories by heart. And here's the crazy thing. None of the stories we write seem to be cheery and end well, do they? I find it fascinating that we're meaning-making machines, but we spend all of our time making up stories that end badly, or that are badly, or that reflect us badly. But they're rarely, if ever, good stories. And interestingly, this is extended into mental illness. One of the primary symptoms of schizophrenia is that you hear voices, right? And we've seen the movies where somebody has schizophrenia and they're like, they want to kill me, or I need to kill them. But there was a study done by a Stanford researcher in 2014 between schizophrenics in the US, in Ghana, and in India. And only in the United States were those voices violent. What does that say about our culture? In Ghana and India, the voices were nurturing. And one guy from Ghana said, I don't need to go out and meet people. I have a playmate with me right inside my head. But in the United States, in our culture of violence, we are the only ones who heard angry, violent voices, and that's the vast majority of the time. So it even impacts how we are with mental illness. But the reality of it is we can change our stories. I went to a class one time where the speaker was talking about how every time he went home to New York, his mom would say, where's your sweater? And he was a young man. He'd just get so angry. He'd be like, you're just emasculating me. I'm my own man. I'm an adult. I can take care of myself. I don't need to listen to you. How dare you? And then he thought, what if I just change? That's a story. And so he's changed the story to, oh, my mom must really love me and care about me. So the next time he went over there and she asked about the sweater, he said, thanks, Mom. I appreciate that. It's in my car. I'll go get it. See how that just changes everything just by changing the story? And we have so many stories we have the opportunity to change right now. We were just walking along, minding our own business, traveling the path that we had either carefully mapped out for the year or just ambling along, trusting the path because it's been pretty consistent through the years. And then boom, we came across a boulder of immense proportions called a pandemic. And maybe you just turned around and walked away. Maybe you thought, I'm just going to hide out until it's gone. Somebody will take this boulder out of the way, and then I can go back on my path. Or maybe you tried to make the best of it, thinking it would go away in a couple months and then got dejected. Maybe you were even making friends with the boulder, like Tom Hanks and Wilson in Castaway. Painted a little picture on it, talked to it, and then another one got dropped right on top of it, that seemingly insurmountable boulder of ongoing systemic racist violence. And it just sometimes seems so impossible. And then, of course, you got your own personal boulders that are blocking your path. And yet, there is a fulcrum available to each of us. We can widen our perception to see the beauty in the world, the fireflies of kindness that still do twinkle in the night sky if we pay attention. And we can change our perspective on what is happening. Instead of bruising our big toe on the boulders in our path, we can say, what are the opportunities here for me? How can the impediment to my advancement be the way I go forward? We can see them as opportunities to create a new story that we get to choose, we get to make the meaning of. And it could be a story of hope and power and joy and lessons learned and relationships deepened if we let it. If we let it, the obstacle in the path can lead the way to a better story. May it be so. And now we will have our response song, which I believe is Be Thou My Vision.
Be thou my vision, O God of my heart, not be all else to me, save that thou art. Thou my best thought by day or by night, waking or sleeping, thy presence my light. Be thou my wisdom, and thou my true word, I ever with thee, and thou with me, God. Thou my soul's shelter, thou my high tower, raise thou me heavenward, O power of my power. Riches I need not, nor world's empty praise, thou my inheritance, now and always, thou and thou only, first in my heart, sovereign of heaven, my treasure thou art.
This is how you see the opportunity within the obstacle. It does not happen on its own. It is a process, one that results from self-discipline and logic, and that logic is available to you. You just need to deploy it. Ryan Holiday, The Obstacle is the Way, the timeless art of turning trials into triumph. This is an opportunity to be generous in the current obstacle of living in a pandemic. Instructions for giving via text, online, or with a check will be given on the following page.
Please join me in our sermon response song. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live.
Our closing words today, again, by the book, The Obstacle is the Way. You will come across obstacles in life, fair and unfair, and you will discover time and time again that what matters most is not what these obstacles are, but how we see them, how we react to them, and whether we keep our composure. You will learn that this reaction determines how successful we will be in overcoming or possibly thriving because of them. So now we will sing our Extinguishing the Chalice song, and let us go forth into the world, determined to let our obstacles be the way and to help others with their obstacles as well. Thank you for being with us today. I'm making, beyond the regular breakout rooms and the choir room, I'm making a breakout room for educators. If you're concerned about being forced to go back to school this fall and in the midst of this pandemic, I've added those who have shown up on the chat, but if I missed you, just put your name in the chat and say you want to be with the educators. But for now, let's enjoy this fabulous postlude that we have. Be there, change your perspective. It's been so good to see you all here today. I'm going to put us all in our breakout rooms. And I love you guys. I hope to see you at Tuesdays with Nori at 5:30 and also next Sunday or in person at the Garden Chat. Take care.